What if the moment she truly starts missing you is not when you chase, but when you walk away? What if your silence is not absence, but the strongest presence she never expected to feel? And what if becoming untouchable in your own growth is the ultimate shift she can no longer ignore? Let's dive into the powerful transformations that happen when you stop chasing, embody Stoic power, and let your peace speak louder than any words. What if I told you the moment she starts missing you isn't when you send flowers, pour your heart out, or prove your loyalty? No, it's when you stop needing her. It's when your presence is no longer a given, but a memory. In today's video, we're going deep into the shift that happens when you go from seeking her to becoming so grounded in yourself that she has no choice but to feel the absence of what she once took for granted. And we're doing this with a calm, calculated mindset, the way a Stoic man would. No drama, no games, just clarity, self-respect, and the kind of silence that echoes. Let's begin. Number 1, neediness masks your value. When you need her to validate your worth, she feels it and slowly pulls away. Desire, when fueled by lack, turns into pressure. But when you detach and hold your own frame, she begins to notice what's no longer begging for her attention. You might have thought that by showing how much you cared, she'd feel secure. That by constantly reaching out, reassuring, proving yourself, she'd finally understand how deeply you valued her. But that's the paradox. What you thought was love came off as dependence. And deep down, most people aren't drawn to neediness, they're drawn to groundedness, presence, certainty. The moment you made her the center of your emotional stability, you unknowingly gave away your power. Every over-explained message, every anxious check-in, every attempt to win her over only made her feel like she was above you. Not because she wanted to feel superior, but because your need placed her on a pedestal you should have reserved for yourself. A man who embodies the teachings of Stoicism knows this. Your value isn't up for negotiation, and it's certainly not something someone else gets to confirm. You don't chase validation, you cultivate it from within. As Epictetus put it, no man is free who is not master of himself, and that includes mastering the urge to be seen, to be chosen, to be constantly reassured. Ironically, the moment you pull back, not to play games, but because you've remembered who you are, everything shifts. She starts to sense the difference. The version of you that once craved her attention now moves with purpose. Unbothered, silent but not cold, focused but not resentful. And suddenly the energy reverses. You're no longer chasing, and that's when she starts noticing what's no longer trying to convince her. Because when you stop needing her, she has a chance to actually want you. If you've ever had to reclaim your value by walking away from a place where you felt unseen, let the others know in the comments or just write, "I stopped needing to be needed." Your journey might be the reminder someone else needs today. Number 2, self-respect is magnetic. You stopped needing her the moment you started respecting yourself. You no longer bend, beg, or break just to stay close. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That includes shaping yourself into a version she might approve of at the cost of your own truth. There was a time you dimmed your light just to avoid outshining her discomfort. You stayed silent when you should have spoken. You stayed present when you should have walked. You made yourself smaller, softer, safer, hoping that would make you easier to love. But every compromise that went against your core didn't just make her comfortable, it chipped away at your center. And eventually you realized no connection is worth losing yourself for. See, real self-respect doesn't posture. It doesn't pout. It doesn't need to raise its voice, it simply is. It shows up as a quiet, grounded presence that no longer trades integrity for affection. It's the man who doesn't explain his worth. He embodies it. And when you start choosing alignment over approval, everything changes. You stop entertaining women who are confused about you. You stop making excuses for inconsistent behavior. You stop internalizing mixed signals as signs that you need to do more. You no longer chase the emotionally unavailable. You attract what mirrors your own stability. That's when the shift happens. That's what she feels. Not just your silence, but your sovereignty. She notices the absence of need in your energy, the absence of performance, and whether she admits it or not, it unsettles her because the version of you who once tried so hard to be enough no longer seeks permission to be whole. The Stoic man doesn't conform to win love. He becomes the kind of man who loves himself enough to walk away from anything that insults his soul. He doesn't fake alignment, he lives it. And that's the kind of energy that draws respect even in silence. Number 3, her curiosity replaces your clinging. When you're always available, there's no mystery, no tension, no space for desire to stretch its wings and take flight. Constant presence, however well-meaning, becomes predictable, and predictability dulls the spark. But the moment you begin living without her authentically, fully, unapologetically, something changes. Not just in you, but in her. Suddenly, your silence becomes louder than every love note, every confession, every attempt to prove your worth. She notices. Not because you made a show of walking away, but because you stopped orbiting her world. And strangely, that's the very thing that begins to draw her back in. You see, neediness creates pressure. It creates a weight that desire was never meant to carry. When your energy is focused on constant reassurance, on being seen, on proving you're enough, it drains the mystery. It turns connection into obligation, but presence, true presence, is different. Calm, grounded, unbothered. It creates a magnetic field around you. It doesn't push, it doesn't pull, it simply is. And that kind of energy, it doesn't beg to be noticed, it naturally commands attention. The day you stopped explaining yourself, stopped reporting your every thought, stopped subtly seeking validation, you didn't disappear. You expanded. You reclaimed your energy and with it your power. You created distance not as a punishment but as a consequence of inner alignment. A space she could no longer control. A silence she couldn't decode. And that distance, it begins to echo in her mind. It raises quiet questions she can't easily silence. Is he really gone? Did he stop caring? Or did he finally remember who he is? Those questions have weight because uncertainty, when rooted in calm self-respect, is fertile ground for attraction. It's in the not knowing that curiosity is born. And where there is curiosity, desire often follows. Before, you might have been the one constantly checking your phone, replaying conversations, overanalyzing silences. Now you're out there living, building, growing, creating your world, not out of spite but out of truth. And when your energy shifts, not as a tactic, but as a reflection of your growth, she feels it, not always consciously but deeply, because you've become what she never expected. Absent but not bitter, unavailable but not cruel, silent but not weak. That is the power of the Stoic man. He doesn't vanish to manipulate. He withdraws to reconnect with his purpose, his center, his inner compass. He doesn't need to be pursued or praised. But in his stillness, in his quiet, in his peace, he often is. Not because he tried, but because he no longer needs to. You're no longer a satellite circling someone else's gravity. You've become your own world, self-sustaining whole. And that shift, it changes everything. If you've ever felt that moment when her curiosity replaced your chasing, drop a comment or just write, "I stopped, orbiting." Let others witness what it looks like when self-worth is no longer negotiable but embodied. Number 4, emotional independence is irresistible. You stopped leaning on her for emotional shelter. Instead, you built your own. And in doing so, you became something most people aren't prepared for: complete. When a man becomes emotionally sovereign, he becomes rare. He's not cold, he's not detached, he's grounded. And that changes everything. At first it might have felt normal, natural even, to lean on her for reassurance, to let her moods determine your peace, to look for her presence as your source of calm. But over time you realize that no one, no matter how much you care about them, should be your emotional home. Because the moment your inner world depends on someone else's approval or consistency, you give away your center. So you did something powerful. You reclaimed it. You sat in your discomfort. You didn't distract. You didn't run. And you didn't numb. You faced the silence, the ache, the confusion, and used it to grow. That's where real emotional strength is forged. Not in the absence of pain, but in the decision to stop outsourcing your healing. And that's exactly what makes you magnetic. Now you're not begging for connection. You're choosing it. You're not anxiously hoping for validation. You're already anchored. That kind of presence doesn't just attract, it commands respect. The Stoic doesn't avoid emotion. He embraces it with discipline. He doesn't collapse in chaos. He breathes through it. As Seneca said, he who is brave is free. And emotional bravery, the willingness to feel everything without letting it own you, is the quiet superpower most never develop. Now she senses it. She sees that you're not seeking comfort. You are comfort. That you're not looking to be saved. You've already saved yourself. And that kind of energy, it doesn't chase. It invites. Number 5. Stillness is louder than chasing. You didn't block her. You didn't lash out. You didn't write some dramatic goodbye or craft a final message filled with meaning. You didn't try to guilt her into staying. You didn't try to win her over with one last grand gesture. You just stopped chasing quietly, calmly, completely. And that alone changed everything. She expected fireworks, a storm, a plea. She thought you'd break the silence first, like always, that you'd check in, ask if she was okay, reassure her of your feelings, even after she distanced herself. That's the cycle she counted on, the emotional rhythm where she could pull away, and you'd come running. But this time the script changed because you didn't react, you didn't beg, you didn't try to prove your worth. You didn't beg for clarity. You didn't perform. You simply chose to let go. Not as a tactic, not as revenge, but as truth. You saw the pattern, and rather than play your part, you stepped off the stage. And that silence, it wasn't hollow. It wasn't passive, it was presence. Pure presence. Stillness with substance. The kind of calm that whispers, "I'm no longer available for what drains me." That's the beauty of grounded detachment, of living like the Stoics taught, not from a place of anger or resentment, but from a deep well of clarity. A man rooted in his own center doesn't need to make noise to be heard. He doesn't slam doors. He simply walks away from the ones that no longer open toward peace. He doesn't announce the change. He embodies it, and in doing so, he becomes the shift. Because when you stop showing up for the drama, when you withdraw your energy without theatrics, you remove her access to something she once relied on, your emotional consistency. And suddenly, the silence she once mistook for weakness becomes the loudest thing in the room. It echoes in the places where your words used to be. But more than that, it echoes in your absence. It's not just the lack of messages. It's the absence of your presence. That's what she feels now. She's left with questions she didn't think she'd have to ask. Why didn't he chase me? Did I lose him for real? Has he outgrown this? And the answer is quiet but certain. You didn't disappear to get attention. You walked away to reclaim your peace. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." And in this case, the best response to chaos isn't retaliation. It's composure, stillness, strength, without performance. Because when you no longer participate in dysfunction, you reveal how deeply you value yourself. And that more than any loud goodbye is what truly lingers. So if you've ever chosen peace over proving yourself, stillness over seeking, drop a comment, or simply write, "She heard the silence." Let others feel what it means to stop chasing and start remembering who you are. You never needed to raise your voice to make your worth known. Your stillness said it all. Number 6, you no longer seek to prove anything. At one point, you were trying to show her you were worthy through texts, attention, gestures. You thought that if you loved harder, showed up more, explained yourself better, she'd finally see your value. You tried to earn what should have been mutual from the start. But now you've outgrown that version of you. You let your life speak for itself. There's a quiet shift that happens when you stop performing for someone else's recognition. When you stop trying to convince them that you're enough. That shift is called self-respect, and it doesn't beg to be seen, it simply shines. Not louder, but deeper. You see, the urge to prove often comes from a hidden fear that you're not enough as you are. And when that fear runs the show, every gesture, no matter how kind, carries a silent pressure. But when a man steps into his own belief, into his own frame, he no longer performs. He lives. He builds. He is. The Stoic understands this well. As Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid, because a grounded man doesn't need everyone to understand his path. He doesn't need validation to stay the course. He knows that true confidence doesn't need an audience. So now, instead of trying to prove your worth to her or anyone, you just embody it through your discipline, your peace, your purpose. You no longer send those long texts explaining your feelings. You no longer bend your boundaries just to keep her close. You no longer chase clarity from someone who lives in confusion. And the irony, that's what makes you attractive now. Not the effort to prove, but the ease of being. You're no longer asking, "Will she see my worth?" You've become the kind of man who says it's okay if she doesn't, because your value isn't up for debate. Number 7, growth becomes the best revenge. She expected you to stay frozen in time, stuck in that old rhythm of waiting, hoping, overthinking. She thought your world would pause in her absence, that you'd still be there if she ever circled back. But instead of staying stuck, you evolved quietly, relentlessly, purposefully. New habits, new peace, new vision. You stopped checking your phone for her message and started checking your calendar for your next goal. You replaced doubt with discipline and emotional chasing with clarity. The man she left behind, he's no longer here. And the man who's replaced him, he's not waiting for her return. He's too focused on his own. That's what makes it hit differently. Because now when she looks back, she doesn't just see distance, she sees transformation. She misses the version of you that once tolerated uncertainty. The one who would have forgiven too fast, settled too quickly, or bent too far. But that version of you, he outgrew the need to prove his worth to someone who couldn't see it the first time. This isn't revenge born from anger. It's the natural consequence of choosing growth over stagnation. As the Stoics taught, the best way to respond to insult, rejection, or loss is not through retaliation, but elevation. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." And you've lived that truth. You didn't become colder, you became clearer. Your glow-up wasn't loud, it was disciplined. It was rooted in healing. It wasn't meant to make her regret. It was meant to make you proud. And now that she sees it, now that your absence carries a different energy, one of strength, self-respect, and quiet achievement, it stings in a way your words never could. Because nothing unsettles someone more than realizing the version of you they took for granted no longer exists. If you've ever felt that shift when your growth spoke louder than your words, drop a comment or simply write, "I outgrew the old me." Let your evolution be the reminder that becoming better is the most powerful closure there is. Number 8. Your peace now costs her access. You found peace in solitude. And that peace, it wasn't handed to you. It was earned slowly, quietly through long nights of silence, uncomfortable reflection, painful honesty, and the discipline to walk away from everything that once kept your spirit restless. You fought for that stillness. You bled for that clarity. And now that you've built it brick by brick, it's no longer something you give away casually. Not everyone gets access to the new you, especially not someone who only returns when it's convenient. When they're bored, when their distractions run dry, when the silence in their world suddenly reminds them of your presence. There was a time when you were easily reached, when your heart was an open door with no guard at the gate. One call, one vague message, one breadcrumb of attention, and there you were, ready to listen, ready to fix, ready to pour your energy into something that never truly poured back. But those days, they're gone. Because now your energy has a price, and that price is respect, consistency, genuine presence. If someone can't bring that to the table, they don't get a seat. Simple as that. You've become the kind of man who doesn't entertain half effort, who no longer confuses familiarity with loyalty. Not because you're angry or jaded or holding a grudge, but because you've become intentional. Your boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. They don't keep love out. They keep chaos out. That's what the modern Stoic understands. Your peace is your most sacred asset. You guard it like a king guards his crown. And no, not everyone deserves an audience in your kingdom. Especially not those who once treated you like a placeholder. Seneca once said, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." And that applies to relationships just as much as it does to life. When you make yourself too available, your value fades into the background. But when you become selective, not from arrogance but from self-awareness, you create a gravitational pull. You become a man of presence, not pursuit. And now she feels it. That calm detachment, that quiet dignity, the echo of a man who no longer dances to the tune of mixed signals. The same man who once responded to every subtle cue now chooses silence over confusion. And that silence, it's not cold, it's not cruel, it's clear. It says, I don't hate you. I'm just no longer available for inconsistency. So if she wants access, now it won't be on her terms, it'll be on yours. Not in your past where chaos ruled the dynamic, but in your present where peace is the gatekeeper, because now you don't live to be chosen. You choose, and you choose peace every time. Number 9, she misses the man who let go. She doesn't miss the desperate version of you, the one who chased, who overgave, who stayed too long hoping she'd change her mind. No, that version of you was too available to be missed, too emotionally invested to create any space. And that's the paradox. As long as you needed her, she never had to feel the weight of your absence. But now she does. She misses the man who finally stopped waiting. The man who didn't storm off or slam doors, but quietly chose himself. You didn't leave to make a point. You left because you realized there was nothing left to prove. No more begging, no more hoping she'd see your worth. Just stillness, just truth. And that kind of letting go, it's unforgettable. That's the part she never expected. She assumed you'd always linger in her shadow, orbiting her life with open hands and tired heart, but you didn't. You evolved. You stepped back, not out of spite, but out of wisdom, because you finally understood someone who overlooks your value doesn't deserve unlimited access to your energy. And that's when she began to miss you. Not the old version, but the one she can no longer reach. The man who found clarity in solitude, who found peace in letting go. The one who stopped seeking closure and became it. The Stoics taught us that real strength isn't in controlling others. It's in mastering ourselves. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life." And emotional freedom, the power to detach with grace, is what separates the reactive from the resilient. Now she sees it. She feels the silence not as absence but as presence, your new elevated presence. And it stings because this time your love isn't available on demand. And what she really misses is the man strong enough to walk away without looking back. If you've ever let go, not in anger, but in clarity, drop a comment or just write, "I became the man she didn't expect." Let others see what it looks like when peace replaces pursuit. Number 10, let her feel what you once felt. The longing, the wondering, the constant swirl of what-ifs. These emotions used to live in you. They shaped your days, kept you up at night. You once replayed old messages, looked for meaning in her silences, and held on to hope like it was the last thread holding your heart together. But something changed. You stopped giving your power to the unknown. You stopped making her distance mean something about your worth. And slowly those emotions that used to grip you began to dissolve. Not because you forced them away, but because you outgrew the version of yourself that needed answers to feel whole. Now those feelings have quietly shifted to her. The longing is hers. The uncertainty is hers. The silence that once tortured you now surrounds her. She wonders what you're thinking, wonders if you've truly moved on, wonders why her return isn't met with the same open door. And that's the lesson. The Stoics never taught us to play games, but they did teach us this. Freedom comes not from controlling others, but from releasing their control over us. You couldn't force her to stay. You couldn't control her absence, but you could control how you responded to it. And that's where the power lives. You once begged the universe for clarity. Now your clarity is making her question everything. Not because you sought revenge, but because you chose self-respect. And there's nothing louder than the silence of a man who no longer waits to be chosen. And there it is, not through chasing, not through convincing, but through calm detachment, quiet strength, and the kind of inner growth that doesn't ask for recognition. You shifted everything. You stopped needing her. And in doing so, she finally started to feel what you once felt. That's the paradox. Your silence became the loudest message. And the man she now misses, he's not the one who waited. He's the one who walked away not to hurt her, but to heal himself. A man who traded emotional chaos for peace, who no longer seeks permission to be enough. So what's the lesson here? You don't win her back by fighting for her attention. You win yourself back by reclaiming your energy. And sometimes the most powerful move isn't action, it's absence. The kind that echoes, the kind that teaches. As the Stoics remind us, freedom begins when you stop giving your peace to people who don't value it. You let go, not to teach her a lesson, but because you finally learned yours. If this message resonated with you, if you've ever found power in letting go or clarity in silence, share your story in the comments or simply drop one of these phrases. I stopped needing to be needed. Access is earned now. She heard the silence. I let her feel the silence. I became the man she didn't expect. Let's build a space where stillness is strength and peace is the standard. If you found value in this video, give it a like, share it with someone who needs this reminder, and make sure to check out the next videos on screen. There's more wisdom waiting for you there. Until next time, stay grounded, stay focused, and protect your peace.